The past 3 congressional elections in Virginia's 10th district have gone blue, but look, it's an open seat this go around because of Congresswoman Jennifer Wexton's retirement. And the contest between Suhas, Subramayam, and Mike Clancy is being closely watched. We've invited both candidates to participate in a wide-ranging interview to discuss the issues with us. First up, we have Mike Clancy. He's on the Republican ticket, and Mr. Clancy is a Loudoun County resident, a lawyer and tech executive, and this is his second time running for this office. Big warm welcome to you, Mr. Clancy. It's so great to have you here in studio.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for Channel 9 doing this. Yeah, this is awesome.
We got a lot of ground to cover, so let's go ahead and dive right in. What's your main issue, something that you'll be focusing on in the first 100 days should you win in November?
So my mission in running for Congress is to restore America. People, after the last 4 years, they're ready for change. They're ready to move this country in a new and better direction. It's time to repave that road to the American dream for our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And it all starts with the economy. That is the #1 issue with voters. And I was at a county fair talking to a single mom. She's working paycheck to paycheck. She has 2 teenage sons. Her #1 issue, buying groceries. There was another mom I talked to who has 3 children, and she shops Costco, Sam's Club, the grocery store, looking for all the sales so that she can manage the grocery prices week to week. So that is far and away the #1 issue with people in the district is the economy, is inflation, the grocery prices, the gas prices, interest rates. You know, the inflation is the worst it's been in almost 50 years.
Sure.
So it's time, that's the #1 issue to address.
People are feeling the strain, that is for sure. I wanted to talk about this. The 10th district has gone Democratic in the last 3 elections, but look, it's also been red in the past. We've got undecided swing voters who are probably going to make the difference this time around. Yeah. What would your message be to them?
So this is a toss-up race, according to all the polling, and the message is, if you're ready for change, if you want to affect change, you want to make your voice heard, you need to get out and vote. You know, my campaign is focused on restoring America and dealing with the economy, border security, the fentanyl crisis, education. And on the other hand, my opponent, you can't trust my opponent on these issues because, for example, he's been talking about being a firefighter, a volunteer firefighter in his campaign, and that's all not true. And the truth is that the volunteer fire department actually terminated his firefighting duties because of insubordination, because of disregarding his duties, because he was found to be a danger to himself and to others, and yet he's been pushing that as a kind of campaign credential.
I did want to jump in real quickly for our viewers. Again, you touched on what Mr. Clancy is referring to, the firefighting credentials for Suhas Subramayam. According to an internal personnel file, he was recommended for termination back in November of 2019. He ultimately separated from the fire department. And again, so what we've seen recently is that he was endorsed by the Virginia Professional Firefighters Association. I know that you called on them, was it yesterday, to take away that endorsement. Anything else you'd like to add in that regard? Sure.
They endorsed him many months ago before this all came to light, and so I've asked them to go back and look at that because, frankly, that endorsement dishonors all the volunteer first responders who are dedicated and who are working hard and making the sacrifices to serve, in contrast to my opponent who's just trying to build a resume based on a false narrative. And that's not the only lie. I mean, he's been putting out a lot of campaign materials and fundraising letters claiming that he grew up in Virginia, that he grew up in the 10th district. And in truth, he grew up in Houston, Texas. He was born in Houston, Texas, went to college in Louisiana, went to high school in Houston, Texas. He didn't come to this area until he was almost 30 years old, but he's been pushing that he grew up here, and that's another false narrative. And also he's trying to rebrand himself as a moderate, as a bipartisan moderate, and he's not. He has a radical liberal voting record, and he's been rated by the Virginia Progressive Network as one of the most liberal progressives in the state Senate.
I wanted to pivot here because you mentioned the economy, and I know our viewers really feel that's so important. And again, the economy continues to poll as the #1 issue for voters. So again, if you win, when you're talking to Virginians, how are you going to make their life easier in a tangible way?
Yeah, there's a lot of steps that have to be taken by the federal government. First, one of the things that spiked inflation were the $1 trillion spending sprees by the Biden-Harris administration. They had 3 different bills. It totaled almost $7 trillion of spending. And they were warned by economists, including economists who worked for the Obama administration and the Clinton administration, that these $1 trillion spending sprees would ignite inflation, and that's exactly what it did. So what we need to bring to Congress is new leadership with fiscal discipline to rein in the reckless spending, because we should be relying on the business world, the business community, entrepreneurship, American innovation to drive jobs.
What would you cut, though? You know, if you talk about reining in spending, can you give me some more examples of what you would rein in, what you would cut in that regard?
Yeah, so I would eliminate these government subsidy programs, these, you know, like for example, the so-called green subsidy programs. We're spending $1 trillion in there. They've produced nothing. Or, they were supposed to build charging stations. They've built 2 charging stations and spent $75 billion. So I'd rein all that in and rely on private industry to drive the jobs. I mean, we've seen now a lot of the high-tech companies like Google just announced that it just signed a contract to build 7 small modular nuclear reactors in order to run its data centers and power AI. So you're now seeing private industry investing in new energy, and all the above integrated energy approach to take small modular nuclear reactors combined with power sources like windmills and solar farms and natural gas sources, and do an integrated approach to power our economy. So you're seeing private industry drive those initiatives, and private industry is always way more successful than the government. So that's one thing to eliminate, those $1 trillion spending type subsidy programs. It really produce nothing.
When I think about helping people, housing is a big issue that we're seeing voters talk about. What can Congress do to make buying or renting somewhere to live more affordable? How can you contribute there?
So the affordability of housing is a direct consequence of all the inflation. So I've met with the building community about how do you address the cost of building, and so one of the things they've highlighted is, hey, their costs have gone up 25–30% to build a house. And the second thing they complain about is all the bureaucracy and all the permitting processes that cost them, you know, tens and thousands of dollars just to get a project approved. And so they're hurt by the high interest rates because they have to finance these projects, so the high interest rates also add to the cost. So if we address inflation, we'll help bring down the cost of building, we'll help bring down the interest rates, and that'll automatically lead to lower pricing in the housing.
Let's talk about the border. I know that's very important with voters. What solutions will you try to enact to deal with that? What can you expand on there?
Sure. So, you know, day one decision by the Biden-Harris administration opened up the border to massive illegal immigration, and they've done 94 executive orders to facilitate that massive illegal immigration. So we have to secure the border. We have to start by finishing building sections of the wall where it makes sense. We have to integrate technology and surveillance technology to monitor the border, expand the border patrol. We need to end the catch and release program, which has allowed many illegal, you know, hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants to come across the country and to just disperse, including known criminals with records for murder and sexual assault loose in our country, and we've seen the consequences of that. And we need to end the sanctuary cities. We need to have strong collaboration between local law enforcement and federal law enforcement. And that's why I've been endorsed by folks like the Attorney General Miyares and Loudoun County Sheriff Mike Chapman, because they trust me to go to Congress to work to secure the border and to provide the resources to ensure that there is strong collaboration between local and federal law enforcement, because there has to be an integrated law enforcement approach to enforcing the border.
Let's talk about where you stand on the Dreamers. We know that Donald Trump tried to cancel DACA back in 2017. Where do you stand here?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is secure the border and eliminate the incentives for illegal immigration. Those are the first 2 things that have to be done. And once all that's in place, then we can start looking at these other secondary issues. But you can't do you can't focus on DACA until you've actually taken the necessary steps to secure the border and address those issues.
There's over 535,000 immigrants enrolled in DACA. So let's say we did address the border. What would you do about DACA? Would you want to cancel it like Donald Trump wanted to do back in 2017? Or where do you stand on that?
I think I'll have to wait and see and look at, it's kind of premature to even address that until we've actually taken care of the border and determine how we're going to secure the border and how we're going to reform legal immigration. That's the second part of the equation. You know, I've talked to a lot of, especially the South Asian Indian community. They have struggled with the legal immigration process. They're trying to come here legally, and it's taking them 12, 15, even 17 years just to get a green card. So we need to not only take care of the illegal immigration and securing the border, but we need to streamline and improve the legal immigration process.
Let's talk about abortion. Okay. Major issue this go around. If the issue comes up in Congress, would you support federal action or federal legislation, or should it remain on the state level?
Yeah, I don't support federal legislation. I think given, once we've had the Dobbs decision, in Dobbs, the Supreme Court determined that the right place for the abortion legislation to be addressed is at the state level. It's obviously a controversial issue, and the voters of each individual state should be allowed to make that determination for themselves. We shouldn't have members of Congress from California dictating to the citizens of Virginia what the law should be. It should be decided by each individual state. And so I do not support federal action on abortion.
Okay, so given the opportunity, you would vote no on a federal abortion ban?
Correct. No federal legislation.
Let's talk about Project 2025. Are there any parts of this that you support? Any parts that you don't support that you want to expand on here?
Yeah, no, I know that's something my opponent likes to spin out. He likes to talk about Project 2025. To be candid with you, the only reason I know about it is because the other party has been talking about it, and I'm not even aware of its contents. So that's not part of my agenda. My agenda is focused on the economy, border security, and education. I'm focused on doing the issues that are important to the 10th District Committee. My opponent, on the other hand, is, I would call his agenda Project Radical, right? He's got an extreme agenda, and we've seen that because he voted to impose the California EV mandate on Virginia, and he voted to apply California's EPA laws on Virginia. He's voted for numerous tax increases, including gas tax increases. Gas is up 50%, and they're adding on more taxes to drive the prices higher. And he's been voting consistently against parents' rights issues and children's issues, including for boys in girls' sports.
Okay, I wanted to just press you here. So the Heritage Foundation came up with Project 2025. You've taken some criticism from some for donating to the organization. Anything you'd like to expand on there?
Yeah, so that was historically, yes. I'm not a current member of Heritage.
Were you a member?
I gave it. I mean, that's correct that I gave a donation many years ago, but that's not really the issue in the races here, right? What people are focused on, again, are the economy and the border and education. The Project 2025 is, my opponent is spitting that out because he has nothing positive to run on. If you're given the administration of the Harris-Biden administration, right, the Biden-Harris administration, they can't run on the economy, they can't run on border security, they can't run on foreign policy. Look at what happened in Afghanistan, look what's happened in the Middle East. So there's nothing positive for them to run on. So they have to spin out these different what I'll call them, frankly, lies, and spin out lies about my positions. Project 2025 is not my agenda.
Let me say this back to you. You made a donation to the Heritage Foundation. You're no longer a member.
Haven't been a member.
Okay.
Yeah, have not been a member for, yeah.
I did thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
I wanted to pivot too because.
But also had no role in anything to do with Project 2025. I didn't, never looked at it. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that clarification. Where do you stand on the war between Israel and Hamas, and of course the casualties in Gaza?
Yeah, so that's the war is horrific. I think the priority would be let's stop the war and release all the hostages. There's innocent hostages or Americans that are being held hostage. So I think that's a priority. And I think that's what we need is strong leadership from the White House, strong leadership from NATO, to drive to an end of the war and a release of all the innocent hostages.
What about in terms of the role the United States should play in this region? Anything you would share with our viewers?
Sure. I think, if you look back 4 years ago, we had stability in the Middle East before the Biden-Harris administration. And then at that time, we were in the process of negotiating the Abraham Accords with those countries. And then all that dissolved when the Biden-Harris administration came in. So I think getting back to strong U.S. leadership and get back to trying to bring the parties together and negotiate those accords to bring peace to the region is key. So we need to end the war and release hostages. Yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to ask about education because look, in the 10th district, we've had some parents say they have issues with the school system, some of the school boards, including what's even taught to students. What do you think Congress's role is when it comes to the public school systems?
No, this is an important issue that you've touched on. And I've been at the front lines in Loudoun County on the education issue at the school board, fighting for our children's rights and protecting our children and fighting for parents' rights. And I think there's a number of issues there. And, one is school transparency, parents' rights legislation. So there was a federal parents' rights legislation in Congress a year ago, and every Democrat voted against it. And this legislation would have done would have required states who are receiving federal money to do what we're trying to, what Governor Youngkin's been trying to do at the state level, which is provide transparency on curriculum. Notify parents when there's going to be sexually explicit material in the school programs. Give parents the right to opt their child out when it doesn't align with their values and their religious beliefs. My opponent voted against all that. He voted against transparency. He voted against allowing parents to opt out. So those, also the boys and the girls bathrooms and the boys and the girls sports were all legislative proposals that my opponent supported. So those are kinds of the issues that we can do at the federal level, is pass that parents' rights legislation that will require states receiving federal money to implement the transparency requirements, the opt-out policies, and we need to protect the girls' sports and protect so the girls have an opportunity for their fair competition and for their own safety.
I wanted to ask in closing, we've got about 30 seconds left.
Sure.
What else would you want our viewers to know about you?
Yeah, so I'm going to Congress to serve you, the people, to work for you, to fight for your future, to fight for your opportunity to pursue the American dream, for your children and your grandchildren, and to restore America. And so tonight, as we close out this program, I humbly ask for the honor of your vote. Give me the opportunity to go to Congress, to work for you, to serve you, and restore America and deliver for you the solutions you deserve. Thank you.
Well, we know this is a highly scrutinized race, the 10th District in Virginia. We wish you the best of luck. Mr. Clancy, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you for the interview. Appreciate
absolutely. I did want to mention, too, on Friday, Suhas Subramayam, the Democratic candidate, will be here for this race to discuss the issues as well. We'll be asking very similar questions as we did with Mr. Clancy. We'll be back after the break.